The wind moaned across the white plain like a lost animal, rising and falling through the empty bones of the world. Nothing moved but snow and memory. The sun hung low, pale and defeated behind a veil of drifting frost. And yet, there was a fire, a single flicker of color in that endless sheet of silence. Burning at the mouth of a cave, Cole Thorne trudged toward it, dragging a sled made from scavenged ribs and hide. His breath came in clouds, each one snatched away by the wind before it could fade. His fur coat was stiff with ice, his beard rimmed with frost, and his eyes, gray as hammered steel, held the ache of someone who'd forgotten how to dream. Every step sank deep. Every exhale was a prayer not to fall. He paused on a ridge to look down at the valley. The world below was a graveyard of mammoth bones and frozen streams, glinting like broken glass. He remembered when the valley had been green, when the air had smelled of grass and life and thunder. That was before the long winter came, before she was taken. Her name had been Arlen. She'd laughed easily, even in the cold, even when hunger clawed at them both. He still heard her laughter sometimes, carried on the wind like something alive. He reached into his coat pocket and touched the strip of her leather bracelet. Cracked, brittle now. Almost there, he whispered, as though she walked beside him still. Inside the cave, shadows stirred. The small tribe had built walls from stacked stones and hides, a fragile shell against the cold, slow hand. Mara Vale crouched near the fire, feeding it pieces of moss and dried dung. Her fingers were cut and raw. The smoke stung her eyes, but she didn't flinch. The fire's warmth was too precious to waste a blink. When Cole entered, a ripple passed through the group. There were only 19 souls left now, faces hollowed by hunger, eyes dulled by too much loss. Elias Crow, broad-shouldered and proud, looked up from sharpening a spear. "He's back," he said flatly, though it sounded more like an accusation than relief. Cole dropped his load beside the fire. 2 frozen hairs, a bundle of withered roots. "All I could find," he muttered. Elias snorted. "Barely enough for the child." From the shadows, a small figure stirred. Lyra, the mute girl with hair the color of ash, sat cross-legged by the cave wall, drawing circles in soot with a bone shard. She didn't look up. She rarely did. Old Boone, the tribe's blind elder, sat wrapped in furs near her. His face was a map of creases, his eyes clouded white like milk. He smiled faintly. "The cold is cruel, but you brought something back, Cole Thorne. That is enough." Mara lifted her gaze to Cole's. It was soft, brief, just enough to say thank you. No words, no smiles. The silence between them said more than either could bear to speak aloud. Later, when the fire's light shrank and the wind howled outside, Cole and Mara worked together to mend a torn hide wall. Her hands trembled as she stitched. His fingers brushed hers as he steadied the edge, and for a heartbeat, both froze. There was no romance in it, just the sharp, fleeting warmth of shared exhaustion. Yet something in the stillness between them felt alive. Mara's eyes glistened in the firelight. "Lyra hasn't spoken since her mother froze last spring," she said quietly. "I tell her stories to fill the silence, but the words feel empty." Cole's voice was low, rough. "Words can't thaw what grief has frozen, but hands can." He reached for the fur patch and tightened it across the frame. Their shoulders brushed. Neither pulled away. A gust roared through the cave mouth, scattering ashes like black snow. Mara turned toward it, watching the wind claw at the world beyond. "If the cold takes her too." She swallowed hard. "I'll follow." Cole looked at her then, really looked. Her face was carved by struggle, not beauty, but her eyes held a fierce gentleness that reminded him of everything he'd lost. "Don't," he said softly. "The world's cruel enough. Don't help it finish its work." That night, he couldn't sleep. The cold whispered against the cave like distant voices. He rose, wrapped his coat tight, and stepped outside. The moon was a dull coin, veiled in mist. Snow drifted endlessly, burying what was once the world, and then something strange. Far down the slope, a thin pillar of steam rose from the ice, twisting gently like breath. He blinked, thought it was a trick of the wind. But it didn't vanish. By dawn, he was there, kneeling beside it. The ground beneath the frost was warm. Steam hissed softly from a crack in the earth. He pressed his palm to the soil. It was alive. He ran back to the cave, heart thundering. "There's warmth beneath the hill," he said, breathless. The ground, it's hot. It's coming from below. Elias scoffed. Nonsense. The cold has frozen your wits. Cole shook his head. Come and see. Boone tilted his blind face toward the sound of his voice. Tell me, boy, what color was the steam? White, Cole said. Like cloud breath. The old man smiled faintly. Ah, the earth still remembers how to breathe. They followed him down the hill, some muttering, some hopeful. When Cole struck the ice away, revealing the soil's faint glow, a hush fell over them. Steam curled into the air like incense, smelling faintly of iron and stone. Mara knelt beside it, eyes wide. It's warm, she whispered. Truly warm. Boone's voice was low, reverent. The heart of the world has not yet died. It beats beneath our feet. Elias frowned. You'd have us live in a hole, like burrowing beasts. Cole met his gaze. I'd have us live it all. The tribe hesitated, torn between fear and need. The wind screamed around them, colder than ever. Lyra stood near Mara, small hand clutching hers. When Cole looked at the child, she looked back, for the first time. That was all it took. The tribe began to dig. They widened the crack until it opened into a shallow cavern, lit faintly by mineral veins that shimmered gold in the dim light. The heat wrapped around them like breath, melting the frost from their lashes. When they built their fire there that night, it burned brighter than any before. Boone sat closest to it, smiling through the haze of steam. Sometimes, he murmured, to survive, we must follow the warmth others fear. Cole watched Mara and Lyra curl together near the fire, the child's eyes fluttering closed for the first peaceful sleep in months. He turned toward the flickering light that danced across the cave walls and whispered, almost to himself, maybe this is how we begin again. Outside, the wind carried the last embers of their old camp away into the snow. The plains lay silent once more, empty, endless, and waiting. Sometimes, to survive, you must walk straight into what others call madness. The world beneath the ice felt like a dream. The walls of the cavern shimmered with damp gold, veins of mineral light running through the stone like trapped lightning. Steam drifted in slow ribbons, softening everything it touched. Moss had begun to grow along the walls, pale green and trembling. The air smelled of life again, wet soil, smoke, and the faint sweetness of something newly born. Cole Thorne knelt by the fire, feeding it small twigs that had once been frozen stiff above ground. His hands had grown steady again, his shoulders less burdened. He looked across the cave at Mara Vale, who sat grinding roots into paste for the sick. Her hair, once dull with frost, now caught the light in deep brown streaks. The sight of her brought a quiet calm to his chest he hadn't known he could feel again. Lyra, the little girl, played nearby, her laughter soft, hesitant, like someone remembering how joy felt on the tongue. The sound startled the tribe at first. They hadn't heard laughter in months. But even Elias Crow, who once glared at every spark of hope, found himself pausing to listen. This place, Mara murmured, not looking up from her work. It heals more than flesh. Cole nodded. The earth remembers what we forgot. The warmth gave them more than comfort. It gave them time. Cole taught them to dry meat above the steam, to heat stones for cooking, to gather dripping water from the ceiling and store it in hollowed bones. He had learned by watching the land itself, by listening to its pulse. But with life came fear. The old ways whispered warnings through the tribe. Some claimed the heat was unnatural, that the gods had cursed this fire beneath the ground. Boone, blind and fading, sat close to the warmth with his cloudy eyes closed, smiling faintly as he breathed it in. One evening, Elias approached him. Elder, the ground trembles. The air burns. This is not a gift, it's a trap. Boone's voice was thin, distant. The cold took everything from us. Perhaps it is time we took something back. Elias turned away, jaw tight. You've gone mad, old man. You and the hunter both. That night, Boone's cough worsened. Mara stayed beside him as his breathing slowed, damp cloth pressed to his chest. Cole sat nearby, sharpening a spear though there was no enemy left to fight. The fire cast their faces in trembling light. Boone's voice cracked like thin ice. Cole Thorne, he whispered. You've seen what others refuse to see. The world breathes from within. Remember that. Cole leaned closer. Rest now, Boone. The old man smiled. No, I am already resting. But listen to me. What saves us will not be our hands, but our understanding. Keep it alive. He exhaled, and the sound was like the earth sighing. The cave fell silent except for the slow drip of water from the ceiling. Mara bowed her head, her lips trembling. The next morning, a storm began to howl above. Snow poured down so thick that daylight vanished. The entrance to the cave grew dim as ice crept down the stone like fingers. The tribe gathered in uneasy silence. Elias stood before them, spear in hand. The air grows foul. The vent poisons us. We must return to the open. Cole stepped forward. You'll die up there. The cold will strip the flesh from your bones before night. Elias' eyes flashed. Better to die under the sky than rot beneath it. He turned to the others. Half followed him. Fear, once spoken aloud, spreads like wildfire. Cole watched helplessly as they packed what little they had and climbed toward the surface, their torches dimming against the storm. Mara took Lyra into her arms. Let them go, she whispered. You can't save those who choose the storm. Hours passed. The cave trembled under the force of the blizzard. The steam hissed louder, as if the earth itself mourned. Cole sat awake through the long night, listening for voices, any sign of the ones who'd left. None came. When the storm finally broke, he climbed the slope to the mouth of the cave. The world outside was unrecognizable. Hills had vanished beneath mountains of snow. No footprints remained, only silence. He stood there until the wind calmed, until his face burned with cold. Then he whispered a prayer for the lost. When he returned, Mara was waiting beside the fire. Her eyes met his, not with despair, but something quieter, deeper. Acceptance. Gratitude. We're still here, she said. He nodded. That's enough. Time passed differently underground. Days blurred into weeks. They learned the rhythms of the earth, the way the steam rose and fell, the way small green shoots began to curl along the warmest stones. The world above had frozen still, but below, life hummed quietly on. Mara's belly grew round. Cole never asked whose child it was. In that silence, there was no judgment, only reverence for what still dared to live. Lyra often sat beside her, tracing circles on the warm rock. One morning, the girl finally spoke her first word in months. Fire, she whispered, pointing to the glow. Mara smiled through tears. Yes, little one. Fire. The day the child was born, the steam shimmered thicker than ever, wrapping the cave in golden haze. Mara named him Ash, for the color of his hair and the promise of rebirth. Cole held the newborn carefully, his rough fingers trembling as if afraid to crush what was most fragile. The baby's tiny hand gripped his thumb and would not let go. This is how we begin again, Mara whispered. Cole looked toward the wall where Boone's final drawings remained. He took a piece of charcoal and began to carve beside them. Figures of men and women standing around fire, hands linked, faces turned upward. Beneath them, he drew a simple shape, a circle of light surrounded by darkness. Generations later, long after Cole and Mara had turned to dust, the walls would still speak. The drawings would tell the story of those who found warmth beneath death, who listened when the earth whispered its secret. And that secret would carry through ages, through hunters, through tribes, through time, until the fire became the beating heart of every home that followed in the final light of his life. Cole sat beside the sleeping child and whispered into the quiet. The world never chose us. We chose it, again and again, with trembling hands and open hearts. He closed his eyes, and the fire burned on. And if you listen closely, even now, you can hear it, the breath of the earth, the slow pulse of warmth beneath your feet. Remember this. What saves us is never strength, it's understanding. In every frozen age of the heart, find your fire. It will be small, imperfect, and human, but it will be enough.